So guys, I was surfing the YouTubes today, and I'm looking at, what are new studies, what are new things that are going on for trying to treat meniscus tears, and different pieces of input that different people might have for trying to rehab an injured knee, because that's what I've been dealing with for a year, and I've been very open about that on this channel. And I've put on a lot of weight this year because I'm less active, I'm not eating properly and all that. And one of the things that I have done in order to deal with this knee injury is I've actually hired a personal trainer. Now, yes, I could have hired, or I could be working with a physical therapist. I have worked with a physical therapist probably about 8 or 10 times in the last year. And so I know what I'm supposed to be doing. But here's the reality, is that when you work with a physical therapist, most of the times for insurance reasons or whatever, you might have limitations on how many times that you can see them. You might have high copays or things like that. There might be financial reasons why you can't. And it was actually cheaper for me to work even with insurance, and actually a gold plan, for me to work with a personal trainer than it was for me to work with a physical therapist. But I know how to do the exercises, obviously. Being a personal trainer for 10 years or so, I've got very good proprioception, which is, your body awareness. And I can film myself. I know all these tools, but here's the reality. I have ADHD, I have depression, I have anxiety, I have these bad habits that I've developed over the last year that keep me out of the gym, that keep me from doing my rehab every day like I'm supposed to. And so hiring a personal trainer got me out of the house to go do the work that I need to do. And what I've discovered since working with him, I've been working with him, I think, for about 12 to 16 sessions now. What I've basically discovered is that I know a hell of a lot more than he does. And so this kind of prompts me a little bit to talk to you guys about what to look for in a personal trainer, how to be able to recognize when you have a good personal trainer versus a mediocre one. And one thing that actually kind of surprised me about the guy that I'm working with right now is that he actually has a bachelor's degree as well as the Bayes NASM certificate for personal training. And somehow, despite me not having the bachelor's degree, I actually do know more than he does, and that actually has come up a lot of times with things like him never having heard of rhabdomyolysis, which is, I've mentioned several times on this channel as being one of the main reasons why you shouldn't do CrossFit or high-intensity interval training if you're not physiologically prepared for that. Rhabdomyolysis is when your muscle proteins break down and they go to your kidneys and cause kidney failure. And so for my trainer, he'd never heard of that before. He also tends to use a lot of machines, and at sometimes they've actually made my injuries worse despite not having much, if any, weight on them. One of them was the prone hamstring curl. We were face down on the machine, and I could not move 10 pounds with my bad leg. And we have since done PRP. We've injected my blood platelets and plasma directly into the hamstring tendon here on the side of the lateral hamstring. And that's actually done quite a bit of good for me. But, it was shocking to me to find out how much shear force that exercise actually introduced into that joint. And I am, it was one of those things that I was like, okay, I'm going to let my trainer have control over my session. I'm going to respect him. And what I found is that that was a little bit of a mistake. So I want to make sure that I am actually guiding you guys in a way that you don't run into the same mistakes. So first of all, there are many certifications out of there, and they are not all created equal. Different ones are going to have different focuses, and you can pass the tests for personal training certifications without actually having really taken the information to heart. And that's one of the things that is really, really key, and it might be one of the questions that you might have about when you talk to your personal trainer is, how research focused are you? How much are you interested in corrective exercise, muscle balance, and things like that? The National Academy of Sports Medicine, which is where most of my certifications come from, is very, very corrective exercise focused. Now, the history of corrective exercise is kind of and we're talking about, where's the line between physical therapist and a personal trainer? Personal trainers are kind of, on a relatively low tier when it comes to healthcare, especially when it comes to biomechanics and all that. We oftentimes do not have a whole lot of extra education thrown in the mix there. So we're not physical therapists. And I don't know how many years ago, there was this guy named Greg Cook who had basically started what's called the FMS system, functional movement systems. And what he is a physical therapist, and he started teaching personal trainers basic physical therapy knowledge. And he's trying to bridge that gap. And basically the government went after him. And they sued him, or somebody sued him for that, because he's making personal trainers work outside of their scope of practice. And he won, is the long story short. He's actually one of the industry leaders for understanding biomechanics for personal trainers, understanding muscle imbalances. And the National Academy of Sports Medicine kind of made their own version of the program that he did that's called Corrective Exercise Program. And so I actually do have that certification. I also do have both of Gray Cook's books that I've been reading, the FMS book. He also has one that's more layman's terms focused. And I actually forget the name of it. I should have had it out in front of me here. And then you have other certification programs out there. There's one called Nesta. That one can basically be done over a weekend. It's not really well regarded within the industry. ISSA. That is a little bit more respected. It's more bodybuilding focused, less corrective focused. NSCA, ACE, which you've probably heard of because the ACE standards a lot of times go into school-related physical education programs. So those can actually be, better, more decent programs in some of the higher education things, which is actually where I think that a personal trainer tends to shine, is how much they actually go out of the way to gain more information, right? So if somebody is just out of their BFA program, I'm not talking about somebody that's in the master's program, I don't know what's going to be covered in the master's level program, or if they are somebody that has done the FMS program, that's probably somebody that I would jump right to and train with. If they've done corrective exercise, hopefully what that means is that they had an interest in that for when they went in for their continuing education. So every 2 years, personal training certifications only last 2 years, and every 2 years we have to have a certain number of CECs or CEUs, continuing education credits, and and we get to choose what those are, and we can do them through like seminars, we can do them through online classes, or we can do them through specializations. And I've always chosen to go the specialization route, even though it's probably technically a lot more work. And corrective exercise was one of the first ones that I did. And one of the importance of having somebody that is correctively motivated, or they have a focus, or they have an interest in that, is that they are going to look at you differently when you move. They're also going to pick out your exercises a lot differently. And so how you can kind of tell that when you are in, like, say, a free session is if you are actually going and doing a workout with the trainer as a free session, what I'd be looking for in that time, it's not just about pricing, it's not just about their personality. You should be able to get along with them. If you find out that there's like some fucking Trump Republican or something like that, and they're like racist as fuck or whatever, then maybe don't train with that asshole. But, beyond personality, what are they doing when they're in your session? Are they putting you on machines? Well, when you're doing a machine, you're not going to be seeing a whole lot of how the body is moving. Machines can actually mask bad form. They can be somewhat helpful in some ways. They're not like, the worst thing a trainer could possibly ever do. But if a trainer is really relying on machines rather than free weight movements or compound body movements, then they're probably not a very good trainer to begin with. And that's, some trainers might go into the comment section here and like bitch me out for saying, well, trick machines are not all that bad. There's not that much evidence. Actually, there is. And usually people that do have a more corrective mindset will actually tend to avoid machines quite a bit. I use cable cross machines in my workouts. I find that's one of the best tools that you can use. I use, when I do squats, I never use a Smith machine. It's always going to be with the bar or dumbbells or kettlebell or something like that. Body weight squats, things like that. Deadlifts, I'm going to use deadlifts. I was actually, when I was working for Fitness Quest in Auburn here, one of the trainers came up to me and asked if I actually trained people on deadlifts. And I said, yes, of course I do. And he says, but, and squats and deadlifts, it was both of those movements. And he asked me why, and I was explaining to him that, because it's kind of an absurd question. And, I was trying to explain to him why, but I was also kind of curious why he thought that he didn't have to do that. And he said, well, you can just do leg press, you can do quad extensions, you can do hamstring curls and all that. And you're hitting all the same muscle groups. You can do the seated leg abduction for your glutes or whatever. And so that just seems like it would be much easier. Well, you obviously don't understand the first thing about biomechanics, right? Stabilization for one thing. And I know that we've gotten quite a bit of criticism over the last couple of years about, these crazy stability workouts. Yes, I can put you on a Bosu ball and have you doing single leg deadlifts on there. I've done that with clients, particularly ones that already had like a really, really high level of stability within their hips and ankles and upper body. This was somebody that did a lot of skiing, a lot of snowboarding, a lot of stability sports already, and I knew that he could handle it. That's a very rare thing for me to do. But, when we do stability work, the body does need to be challenged for stability. That's where injuries come from, is when we don't challenge that. So if, your trainer never gets out an Erickson pad, never does Bosu work, never does balance beam work, which is another thing that Gray Cook has gotten into, but the balance beam work actually comes out of MoveNat, which is looking at more biomechanical movement-based patterns that are oftentimes animalistic as far as imitation of animal movements. But anyways, sometimes they'll have you walk on a half foam roller, things like that. So stability work is actually really, really key, as long as you don't go too overboard with it. Another thing about functional training, that is a word that has been thrown around a lot and is kind of misunderstood. Right? So when people talk about functional training, oftentimes they think that functional training is imitative of everyday life, right? So if, let's say I'm a cashier, right, working at a grocery store, I don't need to go into my personal training session and grab a dumbbell and go like this, right? This I am doing all fucking day long. Why would I train this? What's already happening, because I'm picking up stuff, maybe people have things in the basket, I'm doing this kind of thing where I'm picking things out of the basket and scanning it and all that. I might have wrist issues, I might have shoulder issues, because you see when I pull something out of the basket, I have a tendency to shrug up here, so I might have some trapezius overdevelopment here. I have like this hunched over posture, so I'm actually bringing my scapula apart. I'm protracting my scapula. I'm doing all these things over and over again for 8 hours a day, sometimes more, oftentimes without any rest. And so what I'm going to have is like all kinds of adhesions. That's where the muscle has micro tears that will actually glue muscle fibers to each other, and then they don't slide properly. I might have bicep and wrist overdevelopment. I might have grip issues, which is one of the reasons why when I shop, I take everything out of my basket every fucking time, because I don't want that cashier pulling stuff out of my basket, right? I pull everything out and I put it on the conveyor belt, because it's going to limit the amount of overuse and repetitive stress injuries that cashier is going to be having. So when I see somebody that is, a cashier, maybe I'm going to be working on pronation, supination movements. I might be working on wrist strengthening so that we have less wear and tear from here. I might actually focus a little bit more on tricep than biceps. So if I'm starting to get bicep dominant here, sometimes I might have some inflammation around here, develop some tennis elbow or things like that. That might be something that's already presenting. I also need to be working on, getting people to bring their shoulder blades together and back and down. I might need to loosen up this pec minor. So there's a lot of biomechanical things that I'm thinking about. And if you're kind of sensing a theme here, what I would be doing for functional training for this cashier is to say, okay, here are the repetitive stresses that you are facing in your job. And this is what's going to lead to injury and frozen shoulder and shit down the road. And so what I need to do is I actually need to work on the muscles that are getting neglected. I need to restore balance here. I need to relieve this the tightnesses that you're developing from doing this repetitive work all the time. So when we talk about functional training, it isn't imitating the things that you're doing throughout your day-to-day life. No, it's actually about restoring function to your joints. It's about restoring, and that's what corrective exercise is. That's what functional training is. It is trying to put you in the optimal injury-free zone that you can get into. And so when you are doing your first session with a trainer, movements that I would put into a first training session, especially the free ones, I'm not trying to give you a workout that you can follow for, the next 12 months. If a trainer does just hand you a workout, don't train them, burn the workout, it's probably shit. Don't ask the trainer of that for them to write you out a workout. That's disrespectful for what we do. It would also be irresponsible because I do not know how you work out. I do not know what your biomechanics are like. And so if I have not observed that on the floor, then I'd be doing you a big disservice by just giving you a list of exercises. I usually find it takes about 15 sessions doing the same 3 workouts with people. So 5 sessions for each workout before I see them not just having the consistency to do the movements properly every single time without me cueing them, but also for me to say, okay, we're going to be doing a decline press. And for them to go, okay, I'm going to go grab an appropriate starting weight, and I don't even have to tell them what the appropriate starting weight is, right? They know how to pyramid or do a drop set or do whatever. They go to the right bench, they pick the right angle, right? It takes time, and I can't do that in a single session. The other thing is, so the first movement I'd be doing, squats. Pretty much always. Why? Because, you might not even notice that I'm doing it to assess you. Because that's what my objective is in that first session, is to determine what's wrong with you. Really. So when I look at your squats, I'm looking at your feet. If they don't have you take off your shoes, that's not a red flag. But to be able to judge your biomechanics best, going in a thin soled shoe, so this would be like Converse, right? Or a minimalist shoe, Vibrams, things like that. For doing a squat, I'm not saying for running or anything like that. But really, first of all, we want to have something that has a wide enough toe box that our toes can spread out. This is one of the things that happens a lot with modern shoes, or shoes in period, is that especially on the pinky toe side, they curve in too much, and it will narrow your foot space, so we actually have less traction on the ground to actually be able to feel the ground, and what it's also going to do when you crush in that pinky toe is it's going to start flattening your arch. Oftentimes we have those arch supports in there. Some people need them, some people don't, and the reason why you need them is because you've been wearing shoes your whole life. Sorry, we kind of fucked you over from childhood. And then, so when I'm looking at your feet. Are your arches flattening? Are they caving in? Is this causing your knees to go inward? Are your arches overactive? Are you tensing up, causing your knees to bow outward? This is going to affect, and we've talked about this, I think, in several videos, this is going to affect your pelvic tilt. So if you have your knees going outward and you have those high arches, my pelvic tilt is going to go into what's called posterior pelvic tilt. Now, this may not be starting at your feet, right? If you're sitting all the time and you're slouching in your chair and you're staying in this kind of posture all the time, then it could be starting at your hips, and we need to correct it at the hips level. It could be a core engagement issue. So pelvic tilt, Oftentimes it's in the glutes, it's in the hamstrings, it can be in your hip flexors, right? But it can also be in your core, right? So if I have weak abdominals, I might be sitting in this anterior pelvic tilt, so my butt's sticking out, my belly's, kind of flopping out, and, I'm going into this. This is going to cause my knees to adduct or move closer together. It's going to cause my arches to flatten. If I have tight abdominals, this is kind of a rare thing to happen, but tight abdominals can get you, in this kind of posture. Sometimes it's actually coming in the thoracic spine, right? So if we are, notice when I bring my shoulders forward, this kind of tends to let go here, right? You see that I'm starting to go into that posterior pelvic tilt a little bit just by rolling my shoulders forward. So if we have a kyphotic posture, right, where our pec minor and our trapezius might be a little bit overdeveloped, maybe we've been paying attention to our bodybuilder friends who tell us to do a shit ton of shrugs and upright rows. What's going to happen? This, right? And that's going to affect this. And it's going to affect everything below. So when I'm watching you squat, I'm looking feet, knees, hips. Are your hips moving to one side more than another? That can imply that there are glute dominances on one side or adductor tightnesses on the other side. Are your shoulders staying over your hips? Are you shrugging? Are you having trouble if you're doing an overhead press, right? Are you going like this, right? Really arching your back to get in there so that you can get a little bit of this top pec involved, right? Rather than just your deltoids. You don't got any core engagement. You're sitting in your hips as you're popping in there. Maybe you've got shoulder mobility issues. You can't get back here for when you get up to the top there, right? So those are things that I'm looking for. I might have you do an overhead press. I might have you do a squat. I might have you do a deadlift. I might have you do push-ups. When you're doing push-ups or your pulls, usually I will want to see like a low, mid, or high row. And I want to see a chest press. When you are doing those movements, are you shrugging up? Right? A lot of people try to recruit these anterior deltoids and whatnot and the trapezius to try to push here. This destabilizes the shoulder joint. So I'm looking for all those things. And if your trainer isn't having you do these compound movements, they're just putting you on machines and they're not talking about it, like, be a jackass, right? Do a couple push-ups like this. See if your trainer says anything, right? If you know better, like maybe you're looking straight at the floor at your feet while you're doing a squat, what's going to happen? Well, your body's going to follow your eyes and you're going to go like this, right? So, especially if it's safe for you to do that, right? If it's just a barbell on your back and you've got some decent strength there, sure, go ahead, do a bad squat. See if they say anything. Like, intentionally move your hips slightly to one side. See if, just kind of test them to see if they are actually paying attention. And that's one thing that I do notice about my current trainer is that he doesn't correct me very often. And despite me knowing everything, I am injured. And that is one thing that, a lot of people don't understand is that when you have an injury, whether it's a muscle strain, a sprain, meniscus tear, labrum tear, or something like that, our bodies may be trying to stabilize that joint. They may be doing it in a way that is not necessarily healthy for the rest of your biomechanics or even that joint. And our proprioception will be off. So if you strain a muscle, our nervous system will not always be able to tell exactly what the length tension relationship is in that muscle, and so it might over tighten one muscle, or it might have it too loose. So as I was mentioning before, one way that can present is, let's say that we have maybe some sciatica or a glute issue, and so my left glute is too tight. What is going to happen when my left glute is too tight is when I go down to a squat, my hips are going to move to the right side, away from that tight glute, because that glute, if it's the glute major, right, it's different if it's the medius or the glute minor, right? If it's the glute minor, we might actually have adduction happening here, because the glute minor will cause internal rotation of the femur, whereas the glute major will cause external rotation, but that's neither here nor there. So when we are going down into that squat, are they noticing that there's that biomechanical change? For me, as having an injury, I don't know how my knee is going to respond. And the worst part about that is I can't feel it, right? When you give me a correction with an injury, when I do that movement, it will feel wrong when you tell me how to do it right. Right? So if, let's say, for example, that I'm collapsing, my arch is collapsing here, I'm getting too much adduction into the squat. When you tell me to push out on this, my right knee, and get that glute involved, which actually the underactivity in this glute is part of my injury. So when you tell me that, it will feel like I'm working so much harder on this side because it's weak. Because it's not used to doing that. It's not what it naturally wants to do. It's not what your nervous system feels is right. So we need to tell it that that is what is right. So I know this is long-winded and it may feel like I'm a little bit all over the place with this, but when we are looking at a trainer and we're trying to decide whether or not we want to be working with this person, we want to see, are they personable? Do I actually want to spend time with this person? Is this person paying attention to me when I'm working, or are they just collecting a paycheck? That is probably the most common thing that I've seen is working with trainers who sometimes, if there are TVs in the gym, sometimes they'll get distracted by that. They're looking at that, they're not looking at their client. If they get their phone out during the session. Now, I actually, in order to avoid this, I have actual timers and stopwatches that I bring with me into my sessions. If you're doing a plank or something and they're pulling out their phone to use a timer app, that's fine. But if they are checking their Facebook or something like that, yes, I have seen that. That is something that trainers have done. So if their attention's not on you, if you're not getting corrections when you're working out, then that trainer is setting up for injury. As far as taking notes goes, I am an avid note taker. I actually carry around clipboards. I usually have ones that you can open up and they've got everybody's programs for the day inside the clipboard, so I don't have to keep going back to the file cabinet. I have my workouts pre-written before my client even gets there. I know what they're going to do. If you show up for a session and not counting the first session because the trainer doesn't know you, and when the trainer doesn't know you, it doesn't count because we are trying to see what you can do. So they might have a default that they go to, or they might just be, they might look at you and say, oh, you're obese, so this is the type of first session I'm going to do, or you are super ectomorphic going on the other side. You don't have the basic structure for me to be able to get you to do a push-up. Right? So maybe I have to go with something else. Maybe you have an injury that I didn't know about. So there's so many ifs on a first session that it's kind of hard to have a planned workout. But after that first session, after we've had this conversation, we've established what your goals are, we've established a baseline of how your body moves, then we can start having a plan. So if it feels like they're making it up every time that you show up, then that's probably not a very good trainer. The other thing is like if they are asking you, well, every session you've been going to them for 6-9 sessions, and they're like, okay, we're going to do a incline press, and so we're going to do it with dumbbells. What weight would you like to go with? Like, you're my trainer. Look at your notes. What did we do last time? When I'm working with somebody, I'm gonna usually actually at this point, I will, before you even arrive, I will write down your starting weights. And if I want to go with a lighter weight in the first set, not counting a warm-up set, right? And I want to do like a pyramid set, I might have all the weights for the day written out before you even get there. So I will tell you, go pick up a 35-pound weight. In my early years, I was nicer to my clients, and I'd always just grab the weights and bring them over. I don't see a problem with me sending you to go get your weights as long as I know that you can pick them up properly, right? If you're picking up weights like this and your client never says anything, or your trainer never says anything, not a good trainer, right? They should be all over that kind of thing. So, a good trainer is going to correct your body. They are going to be attentive. They are going to be friendly. They are going to pay attention to you, and they're going to keep you safe. And that's really, really what's important here. And so, who is, who needs a personal trainer? In my opinion, having done this for 11 years, I would say that everybody needs a personal trainer at some point in time. I don't care how experienced you are. I don't care how much you think you know. Everybody can use a set of eyes on you. If you are, been working out, maybe you worked with a trainer or you had a really competent friend that, got you started in fitness. You've been doing it for, 5, 10 years. And then, what can happen over that period of time, especially if you've been following the same program, is that you can actually overdevelop certain muscles, neglect other muscles, and you can actually start developing muscle imbalances that can cause faulty movement patterns that can lead to injury. And so, and sometimes we just get so used to doing things that we don't know how to change up our programs. Finding that new interesting exercise that is actually a sound one, not something where you are, holding a press bench between your legs while doing pull-ups, right? Like you're seeing on YouTube right now. Without doing something absolutely stupid, there are other ways to progress. There are other ways to introduce instability into your workouts that will be safe and they are scientifically sound. There are, maybe we're saying, oh, one thing I'm seeing, the workouts that you've been doing, you're doing lat pull downs, you're doing high rows, you're doing low rows. Where's your external rotation, right? External rotation is when you're pulling and you're going through this. So are you doing face pulls? Are you doing W flies? Are you doing things that are actually going to work on your teres minor and infraspinatus, muscles that will actually help you get into good posture? You're having trouble with scapation. So you have these compensations that you are not aware of. So, there is a lot of value in hiring a personal trainer, but you want to make sure that you are indeed getting the right one. So that's kind of the point of this video, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you guys have any other questions that you guys have that have popped up, let me know. Again, I can't get down to the mat level right now, so I can't really do what I set out to do and do wrestling videos for you at the moment. It's just really, really not safe. Like, I did a cabriole in one of the restaurants I was working in, which is, a bellhop where you go and you kick out, just being a jackass. And that kick out, totally pissed us off. So I can't, do standing, I can't do throws, I can't fall. There's just such a big list of what I can't do right now. So I apologize that I've gotten distracted. I can't, be a wrestling coach for you guys like I want to be, but, and I can't, go out and train and, earn my next belt and all that. So, in the meantime, this is what I got. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope that you found this helpful. Again, let me know if you have any questions, and we'll see you on the next one.